with me. We're not going back. When we, Michigan, elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, we can wake up on November 6th, the day after the election, and say for the first time, Madam President.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer at a Harris-Walz rally in her home state, firing up the crowd and laying out the oh-so-sharp contrast between Vice President Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It's no surprise that Governor Whitmer is so effective at making the case against Trump. She's had to deal with him plenty, like during the COVID-19 pandemic when she called him out for leaving states like hers to fend for themselves. And he responded by disparagingly referring to her as, quote, that woman from Michigan. Or as she puts it in her fantastic new book, True Gretch, quote, politics can feel like blood sport these days. Luckily for me, we Whitmers have a thick skin and a short memory. We're good at turning insults into humor and quick to laugh at ourselves. And that's the best way to disarm bullies. You can trust me on this, or I'm not that woman from Michigan. Joining our conversation, the aforementioned governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer's here. She's the author of True Gretch, What I've Learned About Life, Leadership, and Everything in Between. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Nicole. I'm glad to be with you.
There's so much political news to get to, but I want to start with the book. It's different for a political memoir. It's your sort of signature realness, and I want to just dive right in. I'm gonna read from this incredibly powerful section. You write, in 2013, I was serving as Michigan's Senate Minority Leader. That year, the Republicans tried to push through a bill requiring women in Michigan to buy extra health insurance for abortion coverage, even in cases of rape or incest. My staff and I prepared a speech for me to give on the Senate floor. I delivered my remarks as deliberately and forcefully as possible, letting my anger show. In the back of my mind, though, my thoughts were spinning. For 23 years, I had pushed down the awful memory of what happened to me in college. I never in my life imagined talking about it in a public forum. Yet suddenly, in the course of one short speech with TV cameras rolling, I had to decide whether to reveal my deepest secret to the world. Once it was out, there was no turning back. Let me play that moment for everyone, too.
I shared with many people in my life. But over 20 years ago, I was a victim of rape. And thank God it didn't result in a pregnancy. Because I can't imagine going through what I went through and then having to consider what to do about an unwanted pregnancy from an attacker. And as a mother with two girls, the thought that they would ever go through something like I did keeps me up at night. How extreme does this measure need to be? I'm not the only woman in our state that has faced that horrible circumstance. But I think you need to see the face of the women that you are impacting by this vote today.
If you are the most powerful person in the world or not, it is the most excruciating thing to talk about. Do you still find it extraordinary that on that day, all those years ago, you mustered the strength to tell this story?
Yeah, I got to tell you, just even watching the old clip, you know, I can feel my heart in my throat. Like I feel it once again. And yet,
me too.
I tell that story in the book because 10 years later, as governor, I got to sign the repeal of that legislation. And so that part of the book it's a chapter titled Never Give Up. It took 10 years, longer than it should have. But these fights are worth waging. We can win them. And that's what this book is about, putting some light out in the world in a heavy, hard time and trying to give people a little inspiration, or maybe you get a laugh at my expense. I tell some kind of interesting things about myself I've never shared before, or maybe just some light reading. But I feel hopeful now, and never giving up is a part of that philosophy.
Say more about feeling hopeful now.
I got to tell you, you know, it's understandable that Americans might want to check out. It's been a hard 6 years, from the pandemic to the political rhetoric to all the heavy stuff we've been navigating. And yet I find when I actually roll up my sleeves and get more active is when I feel more hopeful. Getting into and listening to people, connecting with people. Listening is, I think, a superpower, and not enough people do it, especially politicians. And so as I see Kamala Harris and Tim Walz as the standard bearers of the Democratic Party now, I know that these are regular people, middle-class folks who understand how to solve problems, and that gives me hope. And I see the energy that is happening right now. I'm sober. It's still going to be hard, and Michigan is going to be in the center of it all. But I am hopeful, and I think it's seeing my fellow Americans and working with people who actually want to solve problems like Harris and Walz.
You know, after Trump won in 2016, I spent a lot of time in Michigan talking to two-time voters for President Obama who had left the Democratic Party in support of Trump. And so much of what they wanted from him, he did not deliver on. And it's sort of remarkable that the Republican Party nominated him a third time. Can you tell me what the political fight is? What are the voters that are going to be most contested, and where do you think the race stands today?
Well, Michigan is a microcosm of the country. And, we are the most diverse of all the swing states. I was raised in a household, and I talk a little bit about this in the book, too. My dad was a Republican, a traditional Republican, maybe a Nicole Wallace Republican. And my mother was a Democrat. And it was a different time. We could have differences, but agree on the facts and have different perspectives on those facts. If we stayed centered on values and solving problems, we wouldn't get so angry we'd walk away from the table and not have Thanksgiving together. It was a different time. And I do think it's really important that we're making space at the table for people who aren't totally bought into the Democratic agenda, but can see someone who is actually genuinely trying to solve problems and make their lives better. We had Republicans for Harris here in Michigan. I think that's really important. I didn't win Michigan by almost 11 points without pulling a lot of people over the political aisle, Republicans and independents. I value that, and I know that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz do too, and I know that work is being done here on the ground.
I mean, it's interesting that you sort of pull out. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why you are one of the most beloved politicians in the country right now. You point to the ability to listen. One of the people you want to listen to the people you want to listen to are the plotters of your own planned kidnapping and attack. Tell me about that. You write about that in the book as well.
When I wrote that, I didn't know that would strike people as unusual, to be honest. I want to learn. Whether it is reproductive freedom fight that we had last fall or in 22 going into an important election where we amended our Constitution, or it is simply understanding where Michiganders are. What can I do to make your lives better? Fix the damn roads is what I'm known for. It's from asking that question over again and then asking a follow-up question. Why is that so important to you? It's about paying the rent. It's about childcare. It's about getting to work on time. So I do think that listening is so important. These plotters, not a usual reaction to a governor telling you to wear a mask. We have 330 million people in this country. 14 wanted to kill their governor for telling them to wear a mask. Why? What was really going on in their lives? Is there something I can learn that'll make me a better governor or a better human being? Maybe it wouldn't be a good use of my time, but I'd like to try because I see every problem as an opportunity to do more, to do better, and to help someone.
We talked to your Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, regularly. She mentioned the last time she was on, either this week or late last week, that she'd been swatted twice in 24 hours. I mean, there are, it is, to your point about a microcosm, some of the most extreme elements of the Republican Party do call Michigan home. What is your sort of theory of the case of what has radicalized them and what role Donald Trump plays in keeping people caught in a cycle of disinformation and rage?
Well, I think one of the most troubling things is to see a politician who wants to use their platform to simply stoke anger and to foment that against their political opponents. We're not enemies. We're political opponents. And yet we have seen him time and time again use his platform to incite violence. The plot to kidnap and to kill me was something that we saw every time he even mentioned Michigan or me on Twitter. We saw more threats against me and my family, people showing up with long guns on the front lawn of the governor's residence. This is, I think, a really horrible trend. And whether it's a shooter at a Republican rally in Pennsylvania or plotters in Michigan, people of goodwill on both sides need to hold people accountable, one another accountable, not across the aisle, but within the party. It's not okay to simply call out violence when it's turned on you, when you've been inciting it for years. We have to stand against this. Every one of us has a duty and a responsibility to use our platforms in that way. And so I do think that, as we get closer to this election, the swatting we've seen here in Michigan against a number of us, frankly, is just one more tactic to try to intimidate folks. And we can't let them win. We've got to stand against it, and we've got to punish people who are going to misuse and abuse their fellow Americans to hurt someone else who's a political opponent.